Welcome to BuzzHouse, a Baker Tilly podcast where you can hear all the buzz around multifamily housing with all the info you need to help you win now and anticipate tomorrow. Hi, I'm Don Bernards, the principal in charge of Baker Tilly's multifamily housing practice.
And I'm Garrick Gibson, a principal at Baker Tilly, also specializing in consulting on multifamily housing transactions across the country.
Let's get started. On the podcast, Garrick and I have discussed the missing middle and what programs are out there to alleviate the housing needs within this area. So far, we have discussed items like loan structures and equity funds, which are directed at workforce housing and targeting middle income AMIs or area median incomes. We have also brainstormed on whether a tax credit similar to the low income housing tax credit could be created to help combat what we are calling the missing middle housing crisis. Well, today, we're excited to discuss this. Colorado has recently created a middle-income housing tax credit to help combat the lack of affordable housing within this middle-income market. Therefore, today, we're very excited to have in the BuzzHouse Kathryn Grosscup, the Housing Tax Credit Manager for Colorado Housing Finance Authority, to discuss the Colorado Middle-Income Housing Tax Credit Program and how it's being implemented to combat the state's affordability crisis. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Garrick to kick things off. Garrick?
Thanks, Don, and thanks, Kathryn, for being on our BuzzHouse podcast. Before we get into questions like we normally do, we like to let our listeners find out a little bit about our guests. So please let us know a little bit about your background and your current role with the Colorado Housing Finance Authority.
Well, thank you both very much. Very happy to be here on behalf of CHFA. My name is Kathryn Grosscup, as you mentioned, and I manage the allocation of both federal and state affordable housing tax credits and now middle income credits on behalf of CHFA. Just as a bit of background, I've been with CHFA about 7 years and a career about 20 years in affordable housing. CHFA, the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority, was created in 1973 by Colorado's General Assembly. We have a mission, which is to strengthen Colorado by investing in affordable housing and community development. And since we began administering the federal low-income housing tax credit program just shortly after 1986, and added some state credits, the Affordable Housing Tax Credit Program, initially in the early 2000s and then renewed later about 11 years ago, we have been able to support the development or preservation of 80,000 units across Colorado with these credits. So large impact. And then now here in 2025, CHFA will allocate 2 new credits. One is a transit-oriented community credit. And then, of course, today, this new middle-income housing tax credit. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, and thank you for being on. All right. That's a lot to go off of. And that transit-oriented credit, maybe we'll have you back to discuss that one as well. But today, it's all about the middle-income housing credit. So, Kathryn, what about giving a brief explanation of this Colorado middle-income housing credit program and how it actually aims to address the state's housing affordability crisis?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I want to start with a little bit of history. I think that helps. So CHFA has seen even 8-10 years ago a growing need to serve middle-income individuals and families across the state. Around that time, a decade or so ago, we saw increased need to think about missing middle or households whose incomes were too high for subsidized low-income housing tax credit developments or other such developments, but who were becoming overburdened by rising market rate rents across Colorado. And typically, I guess for us, middle income is comprised of households whose incomes are 80% of the area median income, maybe up to 120% of the AMI or area median income. And so missing middle household challenge has become increasingly a factor for all of us in the state. In 2016, CHFA worked to create a middle income access program, MIAP, which we launched then in 2018. And that is a mezzanine debt program supporting middle income developments. In 2022, our legislature recognized that success and supported the program with an investment of $25 million to expand the MIAP program. And since then, we've been able to close 11 deals, and we have a variety of others in the pipeline. And so building from that success, Last calendar year in 2024, the middle income housing tax credit was created as a pilot program to expand upon this work and to really lean into additional support through a credit model for middle income households. The intent is to deploy resources for the development of rental housing affordable for middle income households and to build on that demonstrated demand. So this program as a pilot has an authorized 5-year timeframe, starts this calendar year 2025 through 2029, has an investment opportunity for the credit of 40 million across those 5 calendar years with a statutory affordability period, a minimum of 15 years, and the ability to support units that would serve households 80% of AMI up to 120% of the area median income, and in some cases in rural resort counties across Colorado, up to even 140% of the AMI. And it is a stepped up investment model. So here in 2025, CHFA will award 5 million of this middle income housing tax credit as a 5-year ratable credit. That's a 25 million investment opportunity. In next calendar year 26, it's similar, a 5 million award opportunity. And then the program steps up in 27, 28, and 2029 to a 10 million annual award amount. So we're very excited and we're recognizing this is our inaugural year. So lots to come.
Very good. Kathryn, thanks so much for that overview of the program in general. And this might be obvious in general, but what outcomes are you hoping to achieve with this Colorado middle income housing tax credit? And how are you going to plan success, measure success? I've seen, by a side note, some of your reports on your state low income housing tax credit. And that's very impressive. All the impacts, incredible impacts on the state. Will there be something similar? Or how are you going to look at success, measure success for this program?
Thank you. For us, success is going to really be measured by how local communities respond to this program and how it's shaped by that stakeholder input. We've really tried here to prioritize robust input from communities and stakeholders across Colorado. We know that this allocation plan for MIHTC is a 1-year pilot program plan. So we look forward to further refinement over the next few years. We're going to continue to prioritize stakeholder feedback from the public across this calendar year, specifically in the fall. This first year, 2025, we anticipate awarding maybe 3 to 5 developments. So those will be forthcoming in the second and third quarters of the year. And in addition, as part of the statute, Colorado's General Assembly requires an annual report. So we'll be completing that by the end of the year.
Perfect. Kathryn, and maybe just an add on to that prior question, you mentioned the stakeholder input. How has the program, many stakeholders between the local communities and governments, obviously the real estate developers, how has that kind of input been? Has there been strong interest? What's trending there?
Yeah, thanks, Don. Well, this middle income housing tax credit can support housing across Colorado in a variety of markets and for a variety of stakeholders and developers. We've been holding concept meetings with potential applicants, and we've been certainly answering a lot of questions and being involved with developer teams. As a pilot program, we've been working, of course, not only with our developer partners, but with investors who may be looking at this new credit opportunity. We know, too, that from the Middle Income Access Program, MIAP, that rental housing sometimes is more frequently out of reach in our Colorado mountain resort areas for households where costs are very, very high. But it's also the case in rural communities across Colorado where area median incomes could be lower and still not able to access traditional affordable housing. So all of those factors are contributing to need and how we're going to look forward to continuing to refine the program as we've seen good interest already.
Thanks for that. And that kind of leads me to the next question. So obviously you've had some input and it's a work in progress and you're kind of move along with it. So what kind of challenges and have you encountered in actually implementing or promoting this type of tax credit program? And how did you address those?
Thanks. Well, I'm going to just start by saying that one of the big challenges, of course, is that there is nothing like this. It's a very innovative opportunity in Colorado, and there is no precedent, either here or nationally. There isn't a precedent. We have seen, an increase in demand in affordable housing and affordable middle income housing in Colorado. We've successfully administered that MIAP program, so we have that foundation, but we do know that this is a first of its kind tax credit. So, one way we're tackling that challenge, of course, is to work closely with communities across the state, developer partners, prospective investors, as we seek to, implement a pilot program and really refine our plan as we move forward each year.
Perfect. And just like other states that we deal with, they have, they might have a wide variety of other types of programs and different types of credits to assist, with financing gaps. But how does this program align with other housing initiatives in Colorado? And what type of role is it playing in the larger conversation about housing equity and affordability?
I think that's a great question. Well, the MIHTC we know could fill an important gap in our housing continuum. We want to ensure that all renters, even those with incomes too high for traditionally subsidized developments, such as those financed with low income housing tax credits, have opportunity. And we know that they can be cost burdened. Alongside this new credit, the MIHTC, we've seen other investments created in our state to serve this population. One example is a middle income housing authority, a MIHA, that was created by our General Assembly. And that is a separate authority from CHFA. But this new authority, MIHA, is designed to create opportunities for middle income households as well. Well, I also would like to highlight another program in Colorado, the Proposition 123 Equity Program that was established in 2022. It's a voter-passed initiative which supports developments with an average AMI of 90%. So certainly similar to middle income housing tax credit. CHFA administers the Proposition 123 Equity Program on behalf of the state's Office of Economic Development and International Trade, or OEDIT. And during the first year of Prop 123 Equity, demand was very strong, and it was oversubscribed by nearly 10 to 1, with 313 million requested and just under 40 million able to be awarded. And that program in the first year will support an estimated 628 units across Colorado of middle income housing under the Proposition 123 equity model. So all of that, plus CHFA has a vision that really everyone in Colorado will have opportunity for housing stability and economic prosperity. And that does include, of course, households across the entirety of the housing continuum, from those exiting homelessness to long-term ownership and everything in between, including middle-income households.
Thank you for that, Kathryn. And it's just amazing. Those programs are amazing. Like you said, they're some of them unlike any other in the country. I know a lot of people, when you, again, your state low housing tax credit, a lot of people I know were modeling after yours. So congratulations and all the wonderful, wonderful work and leadership in the housing industry that you're showing. So
Thank you.
maybe one last question for you, Kathryn. If listeners are interested in learning more about this, I like it. I think you said MIHTC program, middle income tax credit, housing tax credit program. Where should they go? Do you have a website? Should they call someone? What's the easiest way to find out information, how to apply, things of that nature?
Yeah, we're happy to have folks take a look. So for more information on MIHTC, the middle income housing tax credit, I'd first suggest visiting our website. It's chfainfo.com. And then with a / MIHTC, or you can simply use our magnifying glass on our website to search for middle income housing tax credit. And additionally, I'd like to sort of call out for listeners and yourselves a new podcast that CHFA began this calendar year, and it's called The Build Out. And in March, that podcast will have an episode on middle income housing. So it would be relevant for this conversation, but there are a number of episodes that are excellent as well.
Very good. Thank you so much, Kathryn. That's it for this episode of the BuzzHouse, talking with Kathryn Grosscup from the Colorado Housing Finance Authority on the new Colorado Middle Income Housing Tax Credit. Once again, I'm Don Bernards.
And I'm Garrick Gibson.
Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. For additional resources around multifamily housing, check out bakertilly.com. If you have a suggestion for the show, email us at build@bakertilly.com. That's BUILD @bakertilly.com. See you next time on BuzzHouse.